Well, hello again, and thank you for joining us as we wend our way through Ephesians. We're in the second half of chapter 3, and we're thinking about Paul's prayer for us. Um, the Narnia Chronicles end with a book called The Final Battle, and in that, right at the end of it, Aslan invites the children basically to heaven, and he says, "Come further up, come further in." It's a calling to pursue God and to know Him more and more deeply. It's a bit like the TARDIS, I suppose. The further in you go, the deeper it gets. And you're never further away, you're just always deeper in. And that's, in a way, that the Bible thinks about God's great love, that we should go further on and knowing it. And that's what these verses are about here. And that yesterday we thought about God strengthening us inwardly, so by his Spirit, so that Christ is more real and dwelling with us. And this takes it one stage further, because it focuses on love. That was the second of the words I mentioned yesterday. So it says here, I pray that out of his glorious riches he may strengthen you with power through his Spirit in your inner being, so that Christ may dwell in your hearts through faith. And I pray that you, being rooted and established in love, may have power together with all the saints, to grasp how wide and long and high and deep is the love of Christ, and to know this love that surpasses knowledge. It's all quite a mouthful, but that second part of what I read there focuses on love. Now, love is a buzzword rather at the moment. It's often used as a political tool, but when the Bible thinks about love, it doesn't start with what we are like, with mutual love between people, for instance. It always starts with God's love for us and urges us to copy that. This is love, says John in his letter, 1 John chapter 4. He says, this is love, not that we loved God, but that he loved us and sent his Son as the atoning sacrifice for our sins. That's John's definition of love. He starts with what God has done in Jesus and in the sacrifice. Jesus is the defining example. So Paul also here in this verse says that Christ's example of love is the defining example. He says that we should be rooted and established in love. And he's thinking of the love of Christ, because that next verse he goes on to say, well, just seek to pursue and to grasp and get hold of the love of Christ in all its fullness. He uses wide, long, high, deep. Just take it all in. That's the thing you need to appreciate how vast it is, how beautiful, how wonderful, how beyond comprehension. More of that tomorrow, actually. This is what you should be rooted in, he says. A plant needs strong, deep roots if it's going to survive the drought. And it's the love of Christ that our roots should be bedded into. This is what you should be established on. That's a change of metaphor. It's to do with buildings rather than plants. But basically, a building needs strong foundations if it is to stand when it is shaken. You need these things. You need roots and a foundation in your life. And he says it's the understanding of the love of Jesus that will act as those things. Going deeper into that love will hold you because it's constant and unchanging and faithful. So he says, seek to get a hold on that so that your roots are strong and your foundation is strong. Of course, we can't avoid saying that this love that we come to understand has to be seen in action, or we haven't really understood it. We're not talking about just an academic understanding of knowledge. Knowledge is tomorrow's word, knowing the love of God in Jesus. But if the true love that God showed us involves sacrifice, when we come to understand love, it must involve it for us too. The roots that we produce in the love of Jesus must bear the fruit of his sacrifice. The building with solid foundations, the building rises out of those foundations. If it doesn't, it's just an elaborate hole in the ground. So John, just to go back to him, in 1 John chapter 4, he also says that our love must follow in a form of action. If we have understood God's love for us, then action must follow. And he puts it like this. He says, since God so loved us, dear friends, we also ought to love one another. And then he goes on to say that, in fact, it's quite amazing, really. Although people can't see God, actually, his love is going to be made complete when they see his love in what we do. They see it in us. That's a high calling, isn't it? So when we're praying to go further up and further in, there's a sense in which actually we've been called to go further out as well, to be rooted in that immense love in such a way that the world sees it and knows it and feels it in what we do for them. Well, there's more about love tomorrow when we think about coming to know that love in all its fullness. And I'll see you tomorrow for that.